So I'm just going to be answering or replying to or commenting on a few comments on my latest video. Yesterday I had a 3-hour conversation with a long-term viewer, Zigzagzilla. He has his own channel, and he has a similar sort of inquiring mindset into the big questions, and so it was amazing for us to seek each other's opinions out and experiences, and so we did that whilst he was recording and I was recording. But then it turns out that he never pressed the button for his microphone, I never pressed the button for my microphone or camera. Until about an hour and a half into it, and then I remembered, and then after half an hour I went to the toilet, I put it on pause, and I came back and I forgot to press the unpause, and so we just lost it completely. But you know, we're both cool with that, and the reason being is because I consider that was a trial run, because we're all over the place, we're excited and invigorated. But the next time we speak, which is tomorrow, we're going to be a whole lot more structured, and so we're going to be addressing what each of us thinks God is, what each of us thinks Jesus is, what each of us opinions on love is, what each of us what our philosophy is on what this is, you know, dream, simulation, fiction of any variety. My personal preference to all of these choices is idealism, the philosophy of idealism. That suits me, and what my experience has been very well. So we have those to look forward to, and I'm looking forward to it immensely, because, well, you know yourselves, guys, I've been asking you to do it, you know, forever, and so finally someone's rose to the occasion. So Mephistopheles, he says this: I say Aaron is an atheist. Atheism is a critique of denial of metaphysical beliefs in God or spiritual beings. A critique and a denial of the metaphysical beliefs in God or supernatural beings. Well, I mean, I never discount the supernatural. You know, I'm always claiming, stating that this is entirely supernatural. My whole book is about the supernatural, you know that. So maybe you mean something else. If you believe that consciousness is God, which I do, but you do not accept any metaphysical or supernatural attributes to it, well, I do. It's all supernatural. And I even go as far as to say that I am God, I share God's consciousness. We all are. But if you don't want to accept that you are, then I'm not forcing it on you, you know. But there are some of us that believe that, you know, we share or we are shards of God consciousness. And everything I've come to learn and understand about this thing that we're experiencing called life just cries out that. And I believe there's a lot to be said from intuition. And all of the supernatural experiences that I've had just, you know, confirm that. But it says here, but you do not accept any metaphysical or supernatural attributes to it, then you may be an atheist by definition. Well, if I didn't accept the supernatural, then for sure I would be an atheist, but I do accept the supernatural. Because you reject the traditional notions of God or gods, do you mean... Oh, goodness me. Shall I start again? I'll start again, shall I? I say Aaron is an atheist. Atheism is a critique and a denial of the metaphysical beliefs in God or spiritual beings. If you believe that consciousness is God, but you do not accept any metaphysical or supernatural attributes to it, then you may be an atheist by definition, because you reject the traditional notions of God or gods. Do you mean your own subjective experience of being aware, or do you mean a universal principle or force that pervades all existence? Same thing. My awareness is your awareness, is the awareness, cosmic awareness. The cosmos is aware. There's no doubt about that, in my mind. If you mean the former, then you may be a solipsist. Well, if you are inferring that I think that I am the only thing in existence at my core due to my godliness, then yes, there's only one thing that exists, and that's God. So a solipsist, from that perspective, most certainly. Someone who believes that only their own mind exists. Well, no. Well, okay, so I don't know how other people want to term that terminology, because people have a habit of bending all these concepts to suit themselves. But as far as I'm concerned, with solipsism, which means someone who believes that their own mind is the only one that is provable, their own consciousness, well, I mean, we can't prove anybody else's consciousness, so we really are all solipsists, aren't we, at the end of the day? You see, this is the silly thing about all this stuff. Oh, if you're a solipsist, then you believe that only your consciousness. Well, can you prove my consciousness? Can I prove your consciousness? No. And so we're all solipsists at the end of the day. You know, see, this is what annoys me. This is where I get frustrated, because people speak silly. And even anyone writing, whoever coined solipsism, is speaking silly. We are all evidently solipsists. We are all God. The way I express it and explain it is like God is a mirror, and God smashed himself into a gazillion shards of his own consciousness, and now we're all shards, broken splinters of that mirror, thinking that we're individuated shards of consciousness, which we are and we aren't. You see, we all pertain to the same consciousness, only most of us don't have that connection. I've had that connection, and lots of people who have had spiritual experiences and entheogenic experiences would have been back to source. This is the whole premise of, you know, Buddhism and Kabbalah, and any form of spiritual meditation. We all endeavour to go back to source. We all endeavour to find that unity with God. And you know, there's one thing that I've come to learn about people on this planet is the Jewish people, in my estimation, are the most intelligent, they are the most spiritual, they are the most desirous to seek God. They invariably are the greatest of psychoanalysts, the greatest of philosophers, because it's their life, it is everything to them. And so Kabbalah is a prime example of that deep and enriched seeking to find God and to be unified with him. That is fundamentally what's at the premise of Kabbalah. It's the unity with the Creator. To go back to being one, to go back to being a solipsist. Someone who believes that their own mind exists. Okay, if you mean the latter, then you may be a pantheist, someone who believes that everything is God, or pantheistic, someone who believes that God is in everything, or idealistic. I am an adherent, an advocate of idealism, because idealism infers that we are all being dreamt in the mind of God. We are all ideas, and this harkens back to Schopenhauer. Yeah, everything's will and representation. There's nothing to prove any corporality to this thing at all. And you know, the beautiful thing about quantum physics in the past 100 years is that they are an adherent of, you know, what the ancient people, the Buddhists and so on and so forth, have been saying, you know, for thousands of years, that it's all Maya. And it's wonderful when our modern day scientists, and when people say, oh, I trust the science, I believe in the science, but they don't want to believe in that one. They don't want to trust that one. And I just go, well, look, forget about all your biology and all your physics and you know, all the rest of that stuff that, you know, you think is true and real because you can prove it here, there and everywhere. Just have a word with your quantum physics mates and see what they've been saying for over 100 years, and nobody can ever refute it. That's what I like to do. That's what I always do. I go back to ground zero with everything. And that's where I'm always premised. I'm always premised in ground zero. And this is one of the things I was speaking about with Ziggy. You know, when we're speaking about what do you believe in this and what do you think about that, I'm like, well, what premise do you want me to come from? Do you want me to come from an egoic premise? I can do that all day long. Or do you want me to come from the supernatural premise of being God? Well, you know, where do you want me to speak from on this? And but mostly, see, because all we do is when we speak from the ego, we just embroil ourselves in nonsense. Every single thing that we're thinking about is complete nonsense, because there's nothing here to think about save for an idea. And some of you have been speaking about that I should speak with this T. Trump bloke, and he's an ardent atheist, and you know, he's depending on science and science and science. Oh my God. Well, the first question I'd say to him, how do you feel about quantum physics? It's your science. You know, how do you feel about the double slit experiment? How do you feel that you know, they actually can't find any matter in their quantum world? You know, you're building everything up about science, 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 this proves, nothing proves nothing. Because it's all superseded by there is nothing. And so it's just laughable to me. And this dude wants paying to talk to him. He wants to be paying me. That's what I'm saying. So, that was Mephistopheles. Mark Twain, you are fixated on your thoughts and strong opinions, dude. It's clear for us all to see, just a vast, expansive fixation. Now, I think this one was directed to me. Correct me if I'm wrong. Mr. Plunger. Mr. Depth Finder. Are you with me on that one, Mr. Mark Twain? Tell me if you are. Tell me if you're not. Mark Twain! Are you with me on that one? Is anybody else with me on that one? Be interesting to find out. Okay, so Luciano, right then. Now, some of you are probably thinking, he's gone mad. He's mad as a hatter. No. No. It's just that some people have less awareness. Luciano, respectfully, I've watched 5 minutes of the channel you named, which is T. Trump, but I doubt Aaron would be able to keep up. Trump likes his reliance on certain models of explaining reality, reliant on science. The difference is Aaron is dealing with science on his own, cherry-picking from experiences and certain speakers. Okay, well, I mean, yeah, we're all given to that. I mean, if we want to reiterate or bolster our argument, then we call on certain people who have thought similar or have, you know, done science which would be in keeping with what we're trying to say. And so, I think you'd be inferring that I, you know, speak about quantum physics a lot in the fact that there's nothing here. And so, well, I just go rest my case until quantum physicists stop talking about there's nothing here. I'm perfectly comfortable in my own supposition or theory or adherence to idealism that there's nothing here physical. It's just a dream in the mind of God. The difference is Aaron is dealing with a science of his own, cherry picking from experiences and certain speakers. Basically, they are both embroiled in the same reality and the same conundrum. Well, of course, we're in the same reality, I suppose. Same conundrum, finding so-called truth, but they have different vocabulary and models to represent what is truth. Well, I mean, I never proclaim that there is any truth. I mean, I am not a truther. I always claim that truth is subjective, and even if you know, science or science adherents want to say this is true, all I go, well, it's true to you. It may be true to you. It's only true to you because you've read it. You know, if these so-called I am adherent of science, well, what are they doing? They're just blind believing. They are no different to people who blind believe that everything's true in the Bible. Science is scientism. It's just another variety of religion, and again, I just raise up above all of this nonsense because it's just ridiculous. It can be blown to pieces in an instant by just going back to the fundamental premise of what we're dealing with here from the you know, ancient Buddhists or Hindus when they claim that it's all Maya. Even before they had a test tube and a Bunsen burner. And there's no difference now. There is only an illusion of matter, an illusion of science. It's all a figment of consciousness. And if anybody, you know, wants to argue that, well, first and foremost, you have to discount quantum physics when they say that there's no matter here. I mean, some of you can say, oh, that's been discounted. Well, if that's been discounted, having the whole world believed it and, you know, could do nothing about it for over 100 years, then I'd be very cautious about that as well. And then if you do discount the quantum theory, then you should be really, really skeptical about any of the shit that you believe in science. You know, it's like you say here about cherry picking. You know, I mean, I don't consider that I necessarily cherry pick. I just go to the fucking source and say, you know, can you discount that? And you can't. Nobody can. Both are out their depth relative to one another. You see, I'm out of my depth as far as his so-called scientific knowledge is concerned, and he would be most certainly out of his depth in relation to my actual experience, the phenomenological, supernatural, paranormal, metaphysical experiences that I've had, which, you know, I'm not alone with those things. People have been speaking about them for millennia. And so it's not just like, you know, I'm some crazy dude and I take too much kratom and smoke too much DMT. You know, people have been talking about this stuff forever. But what I've done is I've read many of those accounts. I've read, you know, all about the Tao Te Ching, all about, you know, the Old Testament and the New Testament and the Quran and Buddhism and, you know, many other facets of different religions all over the world. And it just seems to me that it's preposterous to believe that they could all have the one and only God when it varies so much from everybody else's. I just go, well, look, let's just say there is a God. There's a thing that we call God, whether it's Buddha, Jehovah, Allah, or whatever. Can't we just settle on that, for goodness sake? But they're so culturally bound in, it's my God, it's my Jesus. It's pathetic. Just because science has recognized a certain truth or even accurate of a knowledge-based paradigm. True to what? True to who? That's what I always say. It's all relative. It's all comparative. But as I say again, just look at the quantum world, and then none of that's true. The point is, quantum physics doesn't marry up with the macro world. Newtonian physics, they're chalk and cheese. They both sound great in their own right, but they're just, it's like two south poles. They just ain't coming together, and that's the biggest, conundrum in modern science, isn't it? I don't think it ever can or will. I don't know, what's that bit there you're saying again? Just using different words and understanding just because science hasn't recognised a certain truth or even accurate of knowledge-based paradigm. I don't think if ever can or will. I don't think it ever can or will. Doesn't deny everything in general. Science is very isolated, but is working with the same reality. By that very nature and individual humans, it is only ever going to be restrictive in what can even be observed, and then more to the point what can be known. Well, I mean, the whole thing just stems from, are we going to believe? At the end of the day, what I say is, look, if you're a truth seeker, if you're one of those, then your whole truth is premised on belief, because you as an individual would never ever ever have carried out any scientific experiment, not even that of boiling water to see what temperature it boils at. And some people could say it boils at X temperature. But then I would say to them, well, at what elevation are we talking about? Because water boils at different temperatures at different elevations. And so even that isn't true when someone says, water boils at X centigrade or Fahrenheit, and you just go, well, what about on the top of Mount Everest? What's the temperature there? Vastly different. So there's no truth, people. It's all just... It's all relative, and that's the thing about, Einstein's theory of relativity. Everything is relative. You could say that there's a truth if you are in agreement about certain somethings. You can do the boiling of water experiment. You can all be in one room at one altitude, and you can all have your thermometers in the water, and you can all agree that the temperature is X. But, outside of that environment, you take your Bunsen burners and your pots of water or other places in the world, and then you're going to get different readings. And so this is the whole thing about it. But for those so-called truth seekers, like this T. Trump, I don't know nothing about him. But from what I'm gathering from you guys, he's an adherent to science, and he's probably well read on all this, that, and the other. But it has to be just a belief, because he's never personally carried out any of these experiments. Of course, the task is massive for the individual. If you're talking about splitting atoms and stuff that goes on at the Large Hadron Collider and all the rest of it. And so we just got to believe it then, haven't we? And the shocking thing about all this is, people, that, everybody can be real, believers of what is before them, and then like 5 years later, there's a new paper out. Forget about that. Hey, forget about that. And everyone's kind of like, all sheepishly embarrassed and just like folding up that paper and like sticking it down the side of the cupboard. What paper? I don't know. I never believed in that. And there's something that's completely different now. It's just tedious. Look, people, what I do, why I'm such bullshit and self-assertive, is because I have actually had personal experience. I've had phenomenological, supernatural, crazy ass shit, and they haven't all been on drugs. I've had lots of this stuff whilst I wasn't on anything. The Jesus speaking to me, the visitation of angels, seeing God in the sky on one occasion, and on another occasion on DMT I saw a very similar thing. And with breathing I've experienced different things. All we have to do is just take ourselves out of the everyday egotistical tiny slither of consciousness, and we go into other paradigms. And I would suggest that this T. Trump has never done that. And it says in here somewhere that, he probably hasn't took any psychedelics. If he did, he had a bad trip because his ego was just, too strong to let himself go. And so the ego fought against it every second of the way and just turned it into a nightmare. This video Aaron makes is good since it is arguing for a lack of truth, as opposed to truth itself. Science is its own limitations and excluding of things in its reasoning, and it excludes based on observations. It's important to know what science tells us is only based on observational measurement we decide. It doesn't actually tell us anything in and of itself. Even when Aaron is always talking about quantum theory, that is only but a theory, and we are still millennium away from getting close. That's why this egotistical triumph or truth is kind of funny in a way, as though one person can get there within 7 years of travel versus that of human history totaling approximately 5,000 years recorded. So, I mean, I don't know whether you're referring to me there, my 7 years, the Dark Night of the Soul, but if you are, then, well, 5,000 years recorded of history, well, depends where you look. If you're looking into the supernatural, then you're going to find piles and piles and piles and piles of stuff which reiterate what I've been saying. I've got a book on my shelf written by the great American philosopher William James, and it's spiritual experiences, and within that book there is a pile of recorded, verified, supposedly, because the people that these experiences come from were like ministers of the Lord, or they're in high places, so they could be as believable as anybody could be. And one of the varieties of religious experience is the title of the book. One of these experiences from one of these pastors was almost identical to mine when he had his visitation from God. Only my visitation was from Jesus, which is effectively the same thing. So, I mean, I could lay on the table before you, on these books I've got behind me, a great deal of information which has been subjectively experienced by a myriad of people. And at the end of the day, if anybody wants to spout off about science, well, they don't have any subjective experience. So who do we want to believe? Do we want to believe science and 5,000 years, or do you just want to believe yourself? I would recommend you believe yourself and don't believe anything that you don't know is remotely true from your own cognition or volition or semantic experience, whatever. I mean, at the end of the day, it's all lies. Everything is a lie. We can't rely and trust on anything. And you see, one of the things, one of the paths I travelled many years ago, I took a course in hypnotherapy. And whilst I was taking that course, it very readily became apparent to me how we can't trust anything that we think is true, because as soon as we go onto hypnosis, and of course we all are susceptible to varying levels, whether we are susceptible at all, but But those who are, when you give them an apple, so you give them an onion and tell them it's an apple, and they will eat it on stage in front of everybody, and they won't even have runny eyes. So what can we say about that? It's the fact of knowing that it's an onion and it would give us runny eyes that makes the eyes run. And so people, oh, this is a beautiful apple, no runny eyes, and you know, no grimacing, nothing. It's all mind, people. Everything is mind. Okay, so right then, just going down for another one. Okay, so appears that maybe I've said it all. I think there was more. I swear there was more. But anyway, the whole reason for this video. Let me just speak from memory. I think the discussion or the debate is in relation to how this teacher and I would fare up in a conversation, and you know where we are both coming from. And you see where I'm coming from is my own subjective experience, and nobody could ever discount that. Where he's coming from is what is written in books, and guaranteed that which is written in books is heavily refuted by scientists of a similar caliber. And that's the nature of it, isn't it? No, that's not true, this is not true. It's like, you know, the quantum double slit. Oh, that's been refuted now, that's been debunked. And, you know, lots of scientists say, oh, there wasn't this information and that, there's a flaw here and this, that and the other. But, you know, I'm convinced about what I've experienced, and that's all I'm saying in my channel. I have certain experiences, and I've read about other people having very similar experiences. So it appears that, you know, these things are quite prolific with spiritually endowed people, and when you have these experiences, then you think very differently about the world. And all the experiences that I've had have given me the greatest of doubt as to the so-called physicality of this realm, like quantum physicists tell us, unlike the Hindus of bygone days have told us, and many other philosophies substantiate that there's actually nothing going on here. And so, I mean, I would never get involved in a argument or debate with somebody so Richard Dawkins. He just sounds so Richard Dawkins. And you know, look, here's the thing about Richard Dawkins. The dude has never been near a psychedelic. He evidently is absolutely terrified of taking a psychedelic. If he did take a psychedelic, his whole world would be turned inside out. Everything that he believed or stood for would be turned on its head. That's why he ain't going near no psychedelics. It would be a wonderful, beautiful thing to see that bitter and twisted old man's face just soften and just, you know, admit and accept that everything that he's felt so vehemently, you know, passionate about, you know, science, you know, he's just been a dream in his own consciousness. Neil deGrasse Tyson is in the same boat. He was asked one day, have you ever taken psychedelics? No. Would you ever? Oh, no, 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 no. Well, why? Basically, he said because he was terrified of his cognition being affected. This is a beautiful, genius thing, the mind, and it's working so perfectly and beautiful now. And if I ever took anything and it, you know, just egoic fear. You know, someone would need to say to him, well, where's an instantiation of that ever happening, ever in the world? The only times anybody's reputedly being subject to issues, mental issues, after taking psychedelics are schizophrenic and seriously mentally ill people. People with, you know, good healthy minds just have a great experience which will transform their worlds and expand their consciousness and give them a whole new ball to play with. To be fair, I think that's a good summary of it. They'll be engaged in a whole new ball game, and you know, all the rest of the stuff, it would be highly questionable. And so anyway, I thought I'd just have a short video and mention that, but I will be addressing, hopefully in the finest of details, because what myself and Ziggy endeavour to do is to really delve deep into these questions, and, you know, question each other, instead of just accepting something, we want to know why. Where's the instantiation for that? And if people, you see, for months, I've been saying to you guys, you know, come and, you know, ask questions. If you've read the book, come and ask questions. Because there's a lot of stuff which is, you know, to the atheist, very questionable. And if they're open-minded about this stuff, which being atheists, of course, they wouldn't be. We need open-minded people. We need intellectuals who don't have a horse in any race. They don't have a specific training in any realm which is going to lead to them being biased, being indoctrinated, being hypnotized. You know, all these people coming out of university with science this and science that, it's all hypnosis people. You know, they would be much better off just studying philosophy at the end of the day, reading the odd scientific paper, so you know, they know a little bit of what's going on, but you know, study philosophy. And that's what you'll find about the real intelligent people of this world. They've all studied philosophy, or they are philosophers, because any other so-called knowledge just pales into insignificance in comparison to that level of broad thinking, broad unbiased thinking. The whole idea of a philosopher is to tear your own thoughts apart. Whatever hypothesis you've got, just see how many holes you can rip in it. And this is what René Descartes did, you know, in 1560. He set out to discount every single thing, what he considered was true. And he discounted every single thing, save for the fact that he was thinking. He couldn't discount that. But then, you see, he evidently didn't know anything about meditation, because if he was aware of meditation, and if he was a practicer of that art, then he would know that it wasn't when he thought he realised that he was, cogito ergo sum, I think therefore I am. No. I mean, the Buddhists will tell you, when you don't think, that's when you are, because when you don't think, the only thing which is thinking is the ego, and the ego is a fiction. And so just because people think that they're thinking, they think they're a something, they think they're a real boy. Well, I mean, that in itself is just ridiculous, isn't it? It's preposterous once you know that the ego is a fiction. And so once you know that the ego is a fiction, which René Descartes evidently didn't, then you start looking for something else. And I can't, you know, help but think, people, we really do need just to take a leaf out of the ancient books, because they had all the time in the world to contemplate this stuff without any of the distractions. Evidently, people such as Socrates and Plato and Aristotle and Parmenides and Schopenhauer and, you know, Heraclitus and on with all these philosophers, they just sat and thought. And when you are given to thinking all day, every day, year after year, alone, on your own, without any distractions, then your mind will become settled and it'll be free and it'll be opened up to the Akasha. And that's then when you will start getting these downloads. That's even before you've begun to meditate. When you meditate, you're actually in the Akasha. All that information is there. And when I started meditating, like 14 years ago, for the first 5 years, at least, every single time I meditated, then I would just get streams and streams and streams of insights that just came out of the Akasha. And that's why I'll just make video after video after video. You know, most every day I'll be making 5 videos. Now, I'm not making anything like that amount of videos because I've said it all. And, you know, I think lots of people probably feeling a little bit disappointed, a little bit detached from the Awakened Brave because they are no longer relating to me because I'm too out there. I'm right at the pinnacle now of that which is to be known as far as the spiritual realm is concerned. Teetering, you know, on the precipice of knowing God, being God, you know, with all of the greatest minds that have ever written about it. I'm in that realm. I'm there, fully immersed in all that they've been saying. In the deepest of meditations and introspection and just being pensive about life. I mean, I've been doing this now 14 years, people. You know, I'm effectively living in my cave. There's just me. And there used to be me and a squirrel. But now he's out there on the tree. And so that's just what's going on. And when you are given to a free, wandering mind, then you'll get a lot of inspiration. You'll get a lot of epiphanies. You get a lot of downloads. And of course when you meditate, then, you know, that vastly increases it all. Anyway, guys and gals, I may possibly be rambling now incoherently. Probably had too much drugs, to be fair. I think that's what it is.